The morning sun cast long shadows across Heathrow Airport's Terminal 5 as thousands of passengers hurried through the bustling corridors. Among them walked Sergeant Major William Thompson, a man whose upright posture and measured step spoke of decades in military service. At 62, his graying hair was neatly trimmed, and his weathered face bore the quiet dignity of someone who had served his country with honor. Most notably, pinned to his civilian jacket was the distinctive bronze cross that marked him as a recipient of the Victoria Cross, Britain's highest military decoration for valor. William had earned this prestigious medal during a harrowing mission in Afghanistan 15 years earlier. When his unit came under heavy enemy fire, he had single-handedly rescued 4 wounded soldiers from a burning vehicle, making multiple trips through intense gunfire to bring each man to safety. The medal wasn't just a piece of bronze to him. It represented the memory of fallen comrades and the sacred duty he had sworn to protect others. Today, William was traveling to Edinburgh for his grandson's graduation ceremony. The young man was following in his grandfather's footsteps, joining the Royal Guards after completing his military training. It was a moment of immense pride for the old soldier, who had raised the boy after his son died in active duty. William had saved for months to afford the flight, choosing to fly with Britannia Airways, believing their reputation for treating military personnel with respect. As he approached the check-in counter, William noticed the airline staff were busy with what appeared to be preparations for an important arrival. Ground crews were positioning red carpets and security personnel were conducting additional sweeps of the terminal. He overheard fragments of conversation about a royal visit and special protocols, but paid little attention. His focus was on getting to Edinburgh on time. The check-in process went smoothly initially. The young clerk, Sarah Mitchell, smiled warmly when she saw William's ticket and noticed his medal. She had been working for Britannia Airways for 3 years, and had always been taught to show special courtesy to military veterans. However, as she processed his boarding pass, her computer screen flashed with an urgent message from management about immediate gate reassignments for an incoming VIP flight. Within moments, her supervisor, Marcus Webb, appeared at her shoulder. Webb was a man in his 40s who had climbed the corporate ladder through aggressive cost-cutting measures and strict adherence to company policies. He prided himself on running a tight operation, though his methods often lacked compassion. When he saw William's Victoria Cross instead of respect, he saw a potential problem that could complicate the royal arrival they were expecting. "Mrs. Mitchell," Webb said curtly, his voice low but firm, "we need to make some immediate adjustments to today's passenger manifest. I'm implementing Protocol 7. Due to the special circumstances, Protocol 7 was an internal company policy that allowed management to relocate passengers deemed potentially disruptive or attention-seeking during high-profile events." Sarah looked confused. "Sir, this gentleman is Sergeant Major Thompson. He's a Victoria Cross recipient. Surely we should be upgrading his service, not—" Webb cut her off with a sharp gesture. "That medal makes him exactly the type of passenger who might seek media attention during our royal guest's arrival. We cannot risk any complications. Move him to the economy section and ensure he's seated away from any premium areas." William, who had served in combat zones where life and death decisions were made in split seconds, immediately sensed the shift in atmosphere. He watched as Webb's eyes fixed on his medal with what appeared to be suspicion rather than respect. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had spent his life protecting the very monarchy that this airline claimed to serve. Yet now his service seemed to be viewed as an inconvenience. "Is there a problem with my booking?" William asked politely, his military training keeping his voice steady despite the growing tension he felt. Webb turned to face him directly, his expression cold and bureaucratic. "Sir, due to operational requirements related to today's special flight operations, we'll need to make some adjustments to your seating arrangement. You'll be relocated to seat 34F in the rear economy section." William's original seat had been in premium economy, a small luxury he had afforded himself for this special trip. The change meant being crammed into a narrow seat for the 2-hour flight. But more than the physical discomfort, it was the dismissive tone that stung. He had faced enemy fire without flinching, but this casual disrespect from a fellow Briton cut deeper than any battlefield wound. "May I ask why this change is necessary?" William inquired, maintaining his composure despite feeling the weight of every passenger's stare. Webb's response was swift and final. "Company policy, sir. No exceptions. He turned to Sarah and added loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear, "Process the seat change immediately. We cannot have any disruptions today." The public humiliation was complete. Other passengers in the check-in area had witnessed the entire exchange, and William could feel their eyes upon him. Some looked sympathetic, recognizing the injustice of the situation, while others seemed puzzled by the airline's treatment of a decorated war hero. A few passengers even began murmuring among themselves, clearly uncomfortable with what they had just witnessed. William accepted his new boarding pass without protest, though his jaw tightened slightly. Years of military discipline had taught him when to fight and when to maintain dignity in the face of adversity. This was clearly a battle he couldn't win through confrontation, so he chose the path of quiet dignity that had served him well throughout his military career. As he walked toward the security checkpoint, Sarah Mitchell felt a knot forming in her stomach. She had joined Britannia Airways because she believed in providing excellent customer service, particularly to those who had served their country. Watching Webb treat the decorated veteran with such callous disregard went against everything she had been taught about British values and common decency. Behind the scenes, Webb was coordinating with airport security and royal protection officers, who were conducting final preparations for King Charles's arrival. The king was making an unscheduled stop at Heathrow to personally thank the airport staff for their exceptional service during a recent crisis that had stranded thousands of passengers. Webb saw this as an opportunity to showcase his management skills and potentially earn a promotion. Meanwhile, William proceeded through security and made his way to the departure gate. The rear economy section was crowded and uncomfortable, but he had endured far worse conditions during his military service. He settled into his cramped seat, placing his small carry-on bag in the overhead compartment. The metal on his jacket caught the light, drawing curious glances from fellow passengers who wondered about the story. Behind the distinguished decoration, a young mother sitting across the aisle recognized the Victoria cross and quietly pointed it out to her teenage son. "That man is a real hero," she whispered. "That medal means he saved lives and showed incredible courage." The boy looked at William with newfound respect, understanding that he was in the presence of someone truly special. As the boarding process continued, word began to spread among the passengers about what had happened at check-in. Several people had witnessed the demotion, and the story was being quietly shared throughout the cabin. The general sentiment was one of outrage and disbelief that a Victoria Cross recipient could be treated so poorly by a British airline. Flight attendant Emma Rodriguez had been working for Britannia Airways for 8 years and took pride in treating every passenger with respect and dignity. As she conducted her pre-flight safety checks, she noticed William's Victoria Cross and immediately recognized its significance. Her own father had served in the Royal Navy, and she had been raised to understand the profound sacrifice represented by such decorations. Emma approached William with genuine warmth. "Sergeant Major Thompson, I wanted to personally thank you for your service to our country. Is there anything I can do to make your flight more comfortable?" Her sincere respect was a stark contrast to the treatment he had received from Webb. William smiled, the first genuine smile he had shown since arriving at the airport. "Thank you, miss. Your kindness means more than you know." Emma noticed that despite his polite demeanor, there was a sadness in his eyes that spoke of recent disappointment. Through casual conversation, Emma learned about William's grandson's graduation and the significance of this trip. She also discovered, through discreet inquiries with other crew members, what had transpired at check-in. The injustice of the situation troubled her deeply, but company protocol prevented her from making unauthorized seat changes, especially with the royal visit creating additional restrictions. Back in the terminal, King Charles's motorcade was approaching Heathrow Airport. The king had specifically requested this visit to personally recognize the airport staff's exceptional service during a recent weather crisis that had left thousands of passengers stranded. He was particularly interested in meeting employees who had gone above and beyond to help travelers during the difficult situation. Webb was frantically making final preparations, ensuring every detail was perfect for the royal arrival. He had positioned himself prominently where he would be visible to the king and the accompanying media. His primary concern was showcasing Britannia Airways' efficiency and professionalism, hoping to advance his career through this high-profile encounter. Unknown to Webb, King Charles had been briefed about various passenger service excellence stories from the recent crisis. The King's private secretary had specifically mentioned Britannia Airways' supposed commitment to honoring military veterans, citing it as an example of British values in action. This information would soon prove to be ironically relevant. As the royal motorcade pulled up to Terminal 5, security teams took their positions and Webb assumed his carefully planned spot near the arrival area. The King's arrival was precisely timed, and media representatives were positioned to capture the historic moment of royal recognition for exceptional public service. William, still seated in his cramped economy seat, was unaware of the royal arrival taking place just meters away in the terminal below. He was quietly reading a letter from his grandson, who had written about his excitement to serve in the Royal Guards and his gratitude for his grandfather's inspiration and guidance. King Charles stepped out of his royal vehicle with the measured dignity that had defined his decades of public service. At 75, he carried himself with the quiet authority of someone who had spent his entire life in service to the British people. His arrival at Heathrow was part of a broader initiative to personally recognize exceptional public service, particularly during times of crisis. The King was accompanied by his private secretary, Sir Michael Harrison, and a small security detail. Unlike the elaborate ceremonies that often surrounded royal visits, this was intended to be a more personal and intimate recognition of everyday heroes who had served the public with distinction during recent challenging times. Webb positioned himself strategically as the royal party entered the terminal. He had rehearsed his presentation multiple times, preparing to highlight Britannia Airways' commitment to excellence and customer service. His nervousness was evident as he straightened his tie and checked his appearance one final time. However, the King's attention was immediately drawn to Sarah Mitchell, who was still visibly distressed from the earlier incident with William. Her colleague had quietly informed Sir Michael about her exceptional service during the recent weather crisis, when she had worked 18-hour shifts to help stranded passengers find accommodation and alternative flights. "Miss Mitchell." "Sir," Michael announced, "His Majesty would like to personally thank you for your extraordinary service during the recent weather emergency. Your supervisor submitted a report highlighting your dedication to helping passengers during that difficult time." Sarah looked up in surprise, her eyes still reflecting the moral conflict she felt about William's treatment. The irony of being recognized for exceptional customer service just minutes after witnessing such poor treatment of a war hero was not lost on her. King Charles approached with genuine warmth. "Miss Mitchell, I understand you worked tirelessly to help passengers during very challenging circumstances. Such dedication to public service reflects the very best of British values." His words were sincere, carrying the weight of someone who truly understood the importance of service to others. Webb stepped forward, hoping to insert himself into the conversation. "Your Majesty, as Miss Mitchell's supervisor, I'm proud to say that Britannia Airways maintains the highest standards of customer service, particularly for our military personnel and veterans." The King nodded politely but continued his focus on Sarah. "Miss Mitchell, I'm particularly interested in how you and your colleagues ensure that all passengers, especially our veterans and service members, receive the respect and recognition they deserve." Sarah's face flushed with embarrassment and moral distress. The King's question struck directly at the heart of what had just transpired with William Thompson, and she found herself facing an impossible situation between honesty and loyalty to her employer. The weight of the King's question hung in the air as Sarah struggled with her conscience. Her eyes darted nervously toward Webb, who was giving her a warning look, clearly expecting her to provide glowing praise for the company's treatment of military personnel. The truth about William's demotion seemed to burn in her throat. "Demanding to be spoken, Your Majesty," Sarah began hesitantly, her voice trembling slightly. "I believe in treating all passengers with dignity and respect, especially those who have served our country." She paused, gathering courage. "However, I must be honest with you. Just 8 minutes ago, we had a Victoria Cross recipient check in for a flight to Edinburgh." Webb's face immediately darkened, and he moved to interrupt, but King Charles raised a gentle hand, indicating his desire to hear Sarah's complete account. "Please continue." "Miss Mitchell," the King said with quiet authority. Sensing the moral struggle evident in her demeanor, Sarah took a deep breath, knowing her career might be at stake but unable to compromise her integrity. Sergeant Major William Thompson was demoted from premium economy to the rear of the aircraft. He was told this was due to operational requirements related to today's special circumstances. Your Majesty, this man earned his Victoria Cross saving 4 soldiers in Afghanistan, and yet he was treated as if his service was an inconvenience. The silence that followed was profound. King Charles's expression shifted from polite interest to evident concern, while Webb's face had turned pale as he realized the magnitude of the situation unfolding before him. Sir Michael Harrison immediately stepped forward. Your Majesty, if I may suggest, perhaps we should meet this gentleman personally. The Victoria Cross represents the highest level of military valor, and any recipient deserves our deepest respect and gratitude. King Charles nodded gravely. Indeed, Sir Michael. Miss Mitchell, is Sergeant Major Thompson still in the terminal? He's aboard Flight BA-847 to Edinburgh, Your Majesty. The aircraft is preparing for departure. Sarah's voice was stronger now, bolstered by the King's obvious concern for William's treatment. Webb attempted damage control, his voice strained with barely concealed panic. Your Majesty, I'm certain there was simply a misunderstanding. Our policies are designed to ensure smooth operations, and perhaps the implementation was overly rigid in this instance. The King's response was measured, but firm. Mr. Webb, there is no operational requirement that should supersede the respect owed to a Victoria Cross recipient. Such treatment is not merely poor customer service. It's a failure to honor the very principles our nation holds dear. Sir Michael was already coordinating with Royal Protection officers to arrange immediate access to the aircraft. The King's decision was clear. He would personally apologize to Sergeant Major Thompson and ensure that this injustice was immediately corrected. The royal party moved swiftly through the terminal toward Gate 15, where Flight BA-847 sat ready for departure. Passengers near the windows noticed the unusual commotion as the King's security detail cleared a path through the terminal. Word spread quickly among travelers that something extraordinary was happening. Captain James Morrison, the flight's pilot, received an urgent communication from the control tower about an immediate royal boarding request. In his 20-year career, he had never experienced anything like this. He quickly announced to the cabin crew and passengers that there would be a brief delay due to a special security protocol. Emma Rodriguez was in the galley when the announcement came through her radio. Cabin crew, please prepare for an unscheduled VIP boarding. His Majesty King Charles will be coming aboard to meet with one of our passengers. Emma's eyes immediately went to William, who was still quietly reading his grandson's letter, completely unaware of the extraordinary events unfolding around him. As the aircraft door reopened, King Charles stepped aboard, followed by Sir Michael and a minimal security presence. The entire cabin fell into stunned silence as passengers realized they were witnessing a historic moment. Cameras and phones emerged as people attempted to capture this unprecedented royal visit to a commercial aircraft. The King moved purposefully through the aircraft, guided by Emma toward the rear economy section where William sat. As the royal party approached, other passengers shifted in their seats, some standing to bow as the monarch passed. William looked up from his letter as Emma approached his row, her face beaming with excitement and pride. Sergeant Major Thompson, she said softly, His Majesty King Charles would like to meet you. For a moment, William appeared genuinely confused, wondering if he had misheard. Then he saw the unmistakable figure of King Charles approaching down the narrow aisle, and decades of military training took over. He immediately stood, his posture snapping to attention in the cramped space. Sergeant Major Thompson, King Charles said, extending his hand warmly. I have just learned of your treatment today, and I must personally apologize on behalf of all right-thinking British citizens. Your service to our nation, particularly the valor that earned you the Victoria Cross, deserves our highest respect and gratitude. The King's words carried genuine emotion as he continued. I understand you were traveling to Edinburgh for your grandson's graduation from military service. He must be immensely proud to follow in the footsteps of such a distinguished grandfather. William, still somewhat overwhelmed by the surreal situation, managed to respond with characteristic humility. Your Majesty, your presence here today honors me far more than any slight could diminish. My service was simply my duty, as it was for countless others. King Charles smiled warmly. Sergeant Major, Duty performed with such exceptional courage deserves exceptional recognition. I insist that you join me in the premium cabin for the remainder of your journey. Furthermore, I would be honored if you would accept an invitation to bring your grandson to Buckingham Palace after his graduation, so that I might personally thank him for choosing to serve our nation. The transformation in the aircraft's atmosphere was immediate and profound. Passengers who had witnessed William's earlier humiliation now applauded spontaneously, their faces reflecting joy at seeing justice restored. Emma beamed with pride while in the terminal. Webb faced the career-ending consequences of his callous decision. As King Charles prepared to leave the aircraft, he made one final gesture that would be remembered by everyone present. He removed a personal royal pin from his lapel and presented it to William, saying, "This is a small token of gratitude from your king and country. Your service, past and present, embodies the very best of what it means to be British." The story of Sergeant Major Thompson's treatment and King Charles's extraordinary response spread rapidly through social media and news outlets. It became a powerful reminder that true leadership recognizes and corrects injustice, and that the values of honor, service, and respect transcend corporate policies and bureaucratic convenience. For William, what had begun as a day of humiliation transformed into one of the most meaningful experiences of his remarkable life.